Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kat Mortensen. I'm the Director of Communications at Our America, and I'm so pleased today to be joined by Donna Jackson. She is the Director of Membership Development for Project 21. That's part of the National Center for Public Policy. She is also an advisory board member with Our America. So, Donna, I'll let you explain a little bit about your role with Project 21, and then we'll get right into our discussion today. It's about a new poll that shows that Trump is winning over Black men. He's also winning over DEI skeptic, border hawks. And this poll is also showing Democrats are losing ground on a lot of these key issues. But before we start that discussion, tell me a little bit about Project 21 and what you're doing there.
Well, Project 21 is a Black conservative think tank that focuses on upward mobility, the economic impacts of regulations across the country. And it's all about building stronger families. I do that role, and I also work with CFACT, which is the Committee for a Constructive Tomorrow, on a lot of energy and environment issues, because as you know, climate change is a huge initiative that they've been using to roll back the rights of Americans, but also increase the cost of living expenses. So, I have dual roles as it is right now, and of course, working with Our America.
Well, we appreciate that. At Our America, we are a nonpartisan organization, so we will support candidates from both sides of the aisle. We support issues that cut across, political boundaries. But the core idea being that there are some core issues that we know all Americans agree on, and those include a strong economy. They include freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of thought. It also includes the ability to live in a safe neighborhood. And those are some of the things that we would discuss, and what this poll is showing. And we knew from the last election, Donna, that minority voters, Blacks and Hispanics, made historic shifts, and they broke traditional party allegiances, and many of them voted for President Trump. And this poll, which just was released a week ago, is showing that now, a month or so into his presidency, many of those minority voters are still strongly supporting much of what he is doing. So I'm going to put that picture on the screen. And tell me, why do you think so many minority voters, and in particular, minorities, Black men, are supporting the actions of this new administration?
Well, I think the one thing that minority voters recognize, and Black men in particular, is that everything that the left was doing in terms of their policies were actually hurting their ability to form families, hurting their ability to become financially stable, hurting their ability to protect their communities. One of the things I think about when you look at illegal immigration and what happened over the last 4 years, by the Biden administration, it actually it put a large percentage of illegal immigrants in African American community. But what's significant about that, especially for African American men, is they were military age men that they were putting in the communities, almost replacing them. And I think that African American men, more than anything, recognized that they were actually being displaced in terms of jobs. You're talking about depressed wages, because there were actually large corporations, and some that you would recognize, that were laying off American citizens and hiring illegal immigrants in their place. They also saw, which was very egregious, their school institutions for their kids being affected, where they were putting the kids out of school and having them learn at home, which we know during the pandemic, there was a lot of learning losses because the kids weren't in school and they were housing illegal immigrants in it. All of a sudden, you had communities where they were told year after year, and I would say decade after decade, that there was not enough resources for their communities to be able to become financially viable, where there was economic opportunity for the people in the community. But all of a sudden, there was all of this money that was available. And in fact, putting African Americans further behind financially. So what Trump came in and said, he pledged that he was going to reverse what became so normal under the Biden administration. And he's been keeping his promise in that regards. I mean, on day one, the first person that was activated was Tom Homan, and he went in with I don't want to say a sledgehammer, but he went in right away to go into these neighborhoods to pull all of these illegal immigrants out, especially those that were committing crimes. Because, I can tell you, having visited Chicago myself, when I was there for a speaking engagement, they were actually illegal immigrants that were kidnapping, trying to force a young girl into a van, and the people in the community had to band up to save her, and there was a big tug of war. So they saw more than they recognized more than anything that it was the illegal immigration was an attack on the Black family, and Trump vowed to actually repair the Black family and increase their financial security and the opportunities they have in the community. It's also the fact that you had all of these DAs who were not doing their jobs. I mean, when they decided that they were going to defund the police, who was impacted the most? African Americans. And what you see with the Trump administration is that they are restoring safety in the communities. Not only has the impacts of the border hawk that's coming in the neighborhoods to actually pull all of these migrants out, but it's also having an impact in decreasing the amount of crime that's happening in the communities. So I think that, I had women in areas like Chicago and Los Angeles, and in areas that they never had, that said to me, in Indiana, that said to me, Donna, I have never had to worry about feeling safe in my community, but now I don't feel safe. So the fact that Trump instilled that confidence, that he guaranteed that he was going to keep his promise. And I think the main thing is, when you have a community, especially a minority community, where you've been hearing for 60 years, we're going to get to you. We're going to get to you. And on day one, Trump came in and kept those promises. He gained the respect of African American men and African Americans in general, because for the first time, I think that people recognize, and I more than anybody, is that when they were saying, we're getting to you, it wasn't because they couldn't do anything about it. It's because they didn't want to do anything about all of the problems that were impacting the minority communities. In fact, they were creating these negative impacts. So I think that that's important because, at the end of the day, especially young Black men, they want to have a family. Family is how you create a community. They've grown up in broken households, largely because of policies created by the left, and they want to reverse that. And when they're seeing the Trump administration put in policies that's going to help them build strong families, they're on board. And I think that, we really have not had anyone that we've supported that's actually followed through on the promises they made, except for this president. And so I think that speaks volumes.
Well, Donna, I so much appreciate your point of view. And do you think that this level of support and loyalty to this new administration and the new direction is sustainable? In other words, in the midterm elections and then the next presidential election in 4 years, do you think that minority voters who voted for Trump in 2024 will they continue to vote for those same policies?
I think that what you're going to see is 2024 just the beginning. What you're going to see is you're going to see gradual increases in the number of African Americans that are supporting the Trump administration. I mean, on day one, he made the effort to actually fulfill his promises. The fact that Elon Musk is in the government agencies right now finding waste, that's another promise, because the cost of living expenses is the amount that we spend on government programs has a direct impact on to how much money people get to keep in their pockets, because all of these programs, agencies, they're not for free, and you have to pay increased taxes to sustain them. The fact that he's making a concerted effort to go in and say, how can we cut the unnecessary programs so that we can actually have necessary programs? I think the other thing is the education of all the individuals that were angry about what was happening in the DEI space. It was African American men, because there was an attack on, masculinity. It was supposed to be toxic. There was an attack on women who were, if I'm a father, I don't want my daughters in competing against men. If I'm not going to let my own sons beat up on my daughters, they're not going to want some stranger to do it. So they were against a lot of the DEI initiatives from the very beginning. And let me say something about DEI, because this is the thing that's problematic for me. They've tried to make this analogy that DEI is somehow related to civil rights. It is not. It has nothing to do with the Civil Rights Act. It is a socialist program, but more than that, the DEI industry profession, only 3.8% of DEI professionals were African Americans. So you're talking about people who are talking about equity, right? And they're saying we're supposed to make sure that, there's a certain amount of quotas and people of color represented. But yet in their own industry, African Americans make up 13.7% of the population, but only 3.8% of the DEI professionals. What does that tell you? It was a grift from the very beginning, but they used DEI so egregiously. And I think that this is what the Trump administration is trying to correct. In order to give you had some teachers that are not doing their jobs. You have people that are not making sure that the kids are properly equipped. They use DEI as an excuse to not teach kids how to read. I mean, this is astonishing. Not teach kids English. They were saying somehow teaching a child English was racist. But let me remind people that there were European Americans that came to this country. You had Irish, you had Germans, you had Irish, you had French. Guess what? They had to learn English too. But nobody said that somehow them learning how to use English is racist. And in every profession you have, there's a language. I'm an accountant by trade. Accounts have a language. You have to learn it. If I go practice accounting in a certain industry, there's also a language tied to that. So the point I'm trying to make is this. They use DEI as a tool to not give minorities a competitive advantage, but actually to put them at a uncompetitive advantage. They actually dumbed minorities down and made them less competitive because you need English to be able to you need to understand how to read and write in order to do anything you're doing. Math, science, you have to read the instructions. They use that as a pretense to give cover to people that were not doing their jobs adequately in the school system. They use DEI as a pretense to not teach kids math. I mean, you have entire urban school systems around the country where 0% are proficient in math and reading. In every profession, the fastest growing professions are in STEM. And yet you're telling students that somehow math is racist. I mean, that's hard for me to comprehend when math actually came out of Egypt, which is, by the way, in Africa, but that's racist. They also told kids that they shouldn't be on time because that was somehow whiteness, that kids shouldn't have to do homework, that they shouldn't have to do tests. It's important for people to realize in the marketplace, and I mean whether you're working at a job, you're starting your own business, they're not hiring people for charity. They hire people to solve problems. Now, you told kids that you don't have to be able to solve problems. What corporation is going to hire you? Because they don't just need someone for a photo op. They'll come in and say, I have a tax asset on my books that I'm going to get audited by and have to lose billions of dollars because I can't figure out what it is. We need you to come in and solve it. If you're telling kids, no, all of these things are too difficult for you, who's going to hire you to solve a problem? The other thing you're telling kids is that you're not capable of being able to solve problems. I mean, it's the racism of low expectations. It's what DEI says, because they say, well, we need to lower standards. We need to do carve outs for you because that's the only way you can get a position, that you're not capable of being able to function like every other group in this country. I mean, we all have the same blood, all have the same mind and the same ability. The only thing that stops people is not understanding what they're capable of, no accountability, and not applying themselves. Even if I go into a job, and I've told people this, I worked at a job where I had 1,000 people that worked for me. Guess what? Lots of white Americans didn't get promoted, but they didn't have the excuse of saying, well, it was my race. I mean, you understand when you go on a job, you develop a certain amount of skill sets, and you look at what you're efficient at, and then you add to that. Now, if that corporation doesn't need you for that, someone else will. But you need to build those skills, and you need to show that you can add value. The fact that you are sitting there and telling people, no, you don't have to do any of that. The only thing that's important is that you check certain box is problematic, because again, people are not hiring you they're not hiring you out of charity. They need you actually to be able to solve problems. And we need to make people understand that they need to be able to be in difficult situations, overcome adversity, challenges, to be able to rise to the occasion so that they can help society as a whole, not sitting there telling someone that someone owes you something. That's everything that innovation is not. And I am so happy that this administration is actually attacking DEI. First of all, it wasn't helping us African Americans anyway. If anything, it was hurting them because the brand that was associated with African Americans because of DEI is that we were so helpless that we couldn't actually solve our own problems, let alone solve someone else's. So that's important there. And the other thing is accountability. Personal accountability is not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing. And it's something that we should require for every individual, irregardless of the color of our skin. I have never walked into a room and thought, wow, I hope I'm the best DEI hire. In fact, if someone had offered me a job because I was the best DEI hire, I would turn it down because I want to make sure that I am the best person for the job, for what that company needs. Even if they don't have a problem, I can sit there and look and say, you know what? We can do this more efficiently if we do it this way. I mean, all of those, we should understand that the bottom line is what are we providing for society and how are we making life better for humanity? And that comes from our ability to innovate, create, it create efficiencies, and it comes from our ability to think through challenges. And let me tell you this. I don't mean to go on, but let me tell you this. The fact that I've had to overcome more adversities, I'm actually happy for that because there are some people who cannot survive in adversities. So what Trump is saying is he's treating everyone the same. Thank you. That's what equality is. That he does not look at me and say, you can't do this. He actually says, the best man, let the best person win. So he has the same belief in me as any other person, irregardless of their skin. And if I happen to come out ahead, good job. But if I don't, then I know what I need to do next time to be able to come out ahead. And that's not a bad thing. And I think that Trump is making sure that people understand that. And that's the respect that people want. Because I've heard from so many African American men who said one of the things that broke their hearts was really when people looked down at them like, oh my God, your life is so tragic. You can't do this without our help. They thought that was the degrading thing because all of a sudden the expectations for them was so low that people thought they were incapable. And that's
Donna, yeah. I think everything you're saying resonates with, I'm sure, everyone who is a part of the Our America community, because we are looking for common sense policies, things that resonate each day in our lives. Like you were saying, doing our best, being rewarded for our hard work, and not being pigeonholed or stereotyped. And being able to have a strong economy, like you said. You need those strong jobs and the strong economy to have a family. You need safe neighborhoods. And these are things that at Our America, we talk about every day. And so I'm just grateful that you are part of our community and are, helping us spread the word that there are millions of Americans who simply, want to be taken seriously, want the opportunity to work hard and achieve the American dream. And I think, Donna, you are an example of someone who has achieved the American dream. You've gained a skill, you're taken seriously, you've worked hard, you've earned everything you have. And I think that's what Americans want.
I mean, there's definitely pride when you realize I did that. People
Yeah,
recognize me. I was able to add to someone's life. And I think that that's what we need to get back to.
yeah. Well, I know you have a lot going on with CFACT and Project 21, so I don't want to take up any more of your time. And I, again, am just very grateful for your leadership and for your voice on these issues that are so important to millions of Americans. So, Donna Jackson with CFACT, also Project 21, and advisory board member for Our America. Is there any final word you want to add before we close out, Donna?
What I want to say is this, it's a good thing that we're all being looked at as Americans, not hyphenated Americans, even though, there's been a gain in the number of minorities that are coming over to the conservative movement. But it's mostly because they're looked at as respect and not as helpless individuals not capable of producing.
All right. Thank you, everyone. And we'll see you next time on another Our America video.
Thank you.